Hey everybody, welcome back to Megha Discourse, and I am here with another master video on modern age. And you know what? That modern age is very important as we have major novelists like George Orwell, Virginia Woolf, James Joyce, D.H. Lawrence, T.S. Eliot, and we have so many poetries like war poetry, imagist poetry, symbolist poetry, W.B. Yeats, W.H. Auden, etc. So this age is very important and stay connected till the end of the lecture. In this lecture, we also cover our literary movements, imagist movement, symbolist movement, etc. Or what you mean by stream of conscious and what is dystopian novel and why George Orwell 1984 is a major dystopian novel. So stay connected. What do you mean by modern age? Why we call it a modern age? Before modern age, we are studying Victorian age, Romantic age, then why it is known as the age of modernity? Because the modern age can be defined with the characteristics like skepticism, fragmentation, experimentation, and an intense search for meaning in a disordered world. This age is age of fragmentation, okay, and that's why this age has many breakdowns, because the breakdown of World War I. So you can say that the modern age, it roughly covers 1901 to 1945, which is an age of rapid transformation and radical experimentation. Then the death of Queen Victoria in 1901 symbolically ended the long Victorian age, which had been rooted in moral certainties, religious faith, and imperial pride. But the new century arrived with a deep sense of transition. Old traditions were questioned, new ideas challenged long held beliefs, and the writers felt urgency to redefine the purpose of literature. Now they were questioning, what is the purpose of life? What is the purpose of living? So there is a revolt against the past. We can find the conscious break. It is an attempt to represent fragmented, disillusioned world which is created by war, industrialization, and social upheaval. And modernism rejects Victorian realism and embraces psychology, symbolism, interior consciousness, myth, stream of consciousness, empiricism. So it is a modernist text try to represent the inner chaos rather than outer order. Hence, modernists accepting the life as fragmented. They break traditional narrative structure. They used free words instead of blank words. They are using symbolism instead of moral lessons. They are exploring subconscious mind. We have Sigmund Freud theory of ego. Okay, then they are questioning religion, empire, morality, and progress. They are embracing experimental language, structure, theme. That's why we have stream of consciousness, we have interior monologue, okay, and the main proponent of interior monologue is Henry James. And you know what? That is why the writers like T.S. Eliot, Virginia Woolf, James Joyce, George Orwell, D.H. Lawrence, they do not give the endings or linear stories. They present life as it is experienced, chaotic, psychological, and uncertain. So let us have a look on our historical background of the age. History reshapes modernism more than any other age. The most devastating event was World War I in 1914 to 1918, which claimed millions of lives. The young generation who marched with patriotism, they returned to shattered or never returned at all. So the mechanization of death through tanks, gas, bombs, and trenches, they created a horror unknown to previous centuries. And this war alone destroyed Europe's confidence in a religious morality and rationality. Though the interwar years were no better, the Great Depression era 1921, it broke economies, unemployment. Okay, we have dictators like Hitler, Stalin, they rose to power, they creating fear and uncertainties across the world. Finally, World War II completed the destruction, resulting atomic bombing, concentration camps, mass migration, and political collapse. And it can be seen in The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot. So far as the social background is concerned, socially the modern age witnessed enormous transformation, industrialization, uprooted rural population, crowds in city felt lonely, mechanical and spiritual empathy, traditional family structure weakened, and we can find women were entering universities, offices, political movements. Here is women's suffrage movement which gave women right to vote and leading to new freedom but also new conflict. We have class divisions which remained sharp, and the working class faced starvation, poverty during the depression. And politically the age was unstable. Old empire collapsed, including the British Empire, and the Russian Revolution happened in 1917, which introduced communism as a global force. Ireland fought for independence, and British colonial rule were weakened across the world. So we can say there is a trahimam condition. There is a devastation all around the world. Okay, like we have George Orwell, who was warning us against totalitarianism by dystopian novel. Okay, we have T.S. Eliot, who find the signs of moral decay which reflect in The Wasteland. In a nutshell, we can say that economically Britain was suffering from repeated crises. Soldiers were returning from war found no jobs. Poverty grew among the working classes. The 1929 Wall Street crash, which led to Great Depression, that was the era of Great Depression, which caused mass unemployment in Europe. We have collapse of economic stability, which shook in capitalism. We can find the Marxist theory here. Okay, so the writers like Aldous Huxley, George Orwell, John Galsworthy, they exposed the greed, hypocrisy, and inequality in society. Now, what about the literary background? Who were the writers and what are the features of the writing? So, we have multiple intellectuals which developed and shaped modern literature, like Charles Darwin evolution theory, which challenged religious certainty, Einstein theory of relativity, which changed the perception of time and space. We have Sigmund Freud psychoanalysis, which opened the door of subconscious mind. We have Bergson's emphasized inner consciousness. We have Fraser's golden bough, which introduced mythic parallel. So these thinkers made writers believe that truth is subjective, fragmented, and psychological. It is not universal. So modern writers rejected Victorian morality, their narrative convention, and their poetic meters, and they invented free verse, the poem without rhymes. They experimented with symbolism, irony, mythic, parallels, stream of consciousness, interior monologue. We have genres like the egoist, movements like Imagism. We have movements and groups like Bloomsbury, which encouraged bold experimentation. Let us dive in the types of poetry, novels, drama, etc. Modern poetry, it departs from the Victorian sentimentality and it uses irony, symbolism, and fragmented style. Many poets, they experienced war, which shaped their expression. So first we have war poetry. War poetry is at the heart of modern age. We have Wilfred Owen is the greatest war poet who wrote poems that exposes the horror of trench life, and these are very important, okay, when they are based on our PVQs as well, like his poetry Dulce et Decorum Est, which attacks the patriotic lie that is sweet to die for one's country. Okay, so he expressed the darkest side of soldier. We have Anthem for Doomed Youth, which mourns soldiers like cattle being slaughtered. Then we have Strange Meeting, Futility, Exposure. So these are important poems written by Wilfred Owen. Then we have Siegfried Sassoon, who is famous for Suicide in the Trenches, Counter Attack, The Rear Guard, which reveal the cruelty of war generals. Then we have Rupert Brooke. Unlike Owen and Session, he wrote idealistic patriotic sonnet. Like we have Wilfred Owen and Session, they wrote against the war. Rupert Brooke, he was enjoying the war. He was writing the idealistic patriotic sonnet like the soldier, though he died early in the war, but he was embellishing the war, the soldier. Then we have Isaac Rosenberg, who wrote bold poems like Break of the Day in the Trenches. So these poets replaced heroic glory with real pain and disillusionment, grief. Okay. Then we have Imagist poetry, and this movement is led by Ezra Pound, Richard Alton, Amy Lowell and H.D., that is Hilda Doolittle. They are the major group leaders. Like Hilda Doolittle wrote Oriot, which commands on nature, that is sharp, vivid imagery, and also wrote Sea Rose, Pietri, Garden, The Walls. They're less important. We have Richard Alditon, who wrote crisp imagery like images, childhood, Febrile. Then we have Ezra Pound, who is famous for Lucasta, PYQ, Repostes, PYQ, Cathay, Cantos, PYQ, and it shaped expression. So Imagism changed poetry forever by simplifying language, intensifying meaning. Okay, you will find an image while you are reading a book or reading a poem. And we have Georgian poetry. Georgian poets, they were active before World War I, and they wrote in a gentle and rural poetry, which contrast sharply with modern disillusionment. We have Walter de la Meres, who wrote The Listeners, Silver, Motoring, The Ghost, which presents mysterious atmosphere. Then we have John Masefield, who wrote sea-themed poems like Sea Fever, Cargoes, Laugh and Be Merry, PYQ. Then we have Rupert Brooke. He also is a Georgian poet before becoming a war poet. So this movement marks the transition from Victorian Romanticism to the sharper realism of poetry. Then we have symbolist and modern poetry. Symbolist means symbols. The writers use symbols to present the idea. So symbolist poetry uses images to express inner state, like T.S. Eliot, W.B. Yeats, W.H. Auden, etc. We have poetry of W.B. Yeats, who influenced Irish mythology and mysticism, who wrote profound poems like The Second Coming, Easter 1916, Sailing to Byzantium, Leda and the Swan, Among School Children, okay, and A Prayer for My Daughter, etc. He believed history moves in cycles, okay. It reflected in his haunting lines about a world falling apart. Like he said in The Second Coming, turning and turning with the sunning gyre, okay. So he was talking about the loop that the history repeats, okay. Then we have T.S. Eliot, who is most influential modern poet, and he depicted the spiritual wasteland in Europe. His greatest works include The Waste Land, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. He wrote The Hollow Man, Four Quatrains, they all are PYQs, and Zero-Nation. So his poetry uses fragmented structure, mythic parallels, multiple voice, and deep symbolism. Then we have another genre like prose. So the modern novel breaks linear storytelling and enters the psychological depth of character. And before that, we have to understand what is stream of consciousness and interior monologue. So stream of consciousness was coined by William James, who was the psychologist, and this technique was developed and used by James Joyce, Virginia Woolf, and Dorothy Richardson, etc. It represents the continuous flow of thoughts, memories, impressions inside the human mind, okay. And it is different from interior monologue. Interior monologue means the direct presentation of thoughts, and stream of consciousness means the indirect presentation, like I am sitting before the camera, and if I stop speaking,
I want you to tell the difference between stream of consciousness and interior monologue.
Now what are you thinking? That I, yes, stop to speak, but I have thoughts which are running into my mind, okay. So that running thoughts, it is known as the stream of consciousness. Who were the major novelists? Number one, we have James Joyce, who revolutionized fiction. His masterpiece is Ulysses, which retells Homer's Odysseys in one day. He used interior monologue. Then he wrote Dubliners, a portrait of artist as a young man, PYQ. Exiles, Phonogram Fake, PYQ. So James Joyce shows the complexity of consciousness and the chaos of modern life. Then we have Virginia Woolf, the head of Bloomsbury Group. She explores female psychology, memory, and identity. And her key novels include Mrs. Dalloway, To the Lighthouse, The Wave, Orlando, The Years. Okay, so her essays like A Room of One's Own and 3 Guineas, they argue for women intellectual freedom. Like in A Room of One's Own, she wrote that, and it is famous speech and PYQ as well, that a woman need financial independence and a room if she wants to write. Okay, and it asked frequently in our exam. Then we have D.H. Lawrence, who is famous for Sons and Lovers. Okay, so D.H. Lawrence focuses on instinct, sexuality, and the conflict between body and the mind. So his major novels like Sons and Lovers, in which he presents the relation between a mother and a son, and we can find the deepest complex in this work. Then The Rainbow, Women in Love, Lady Chatterley's Lover, his controversial work, PYQ Hamara. Then The Plumed Serpent. He believed industrial society which destroyed human emotions. We have E.M. Forster, who wrote about class conflict, connection, human values in novels like A Passage to India. Okay, A Passage to India is very important. You must read that work, okay, in which he tells the story of Dr. Aziz. He presents Hindu, Muslim and British conflict here. Then we have Howard's End, A Room with a View, The Longest Runway and Morris. Then we have H.G. Wells, who pioneered science fiction, and we have done it in our Victorian period as well. His famous work include The Time Machine, The Invisible Man, PYQ, The War of Worlds, The Island of Dr. Moreau, The Sleeper Awakes, PYQ. Okay, so and we have Aldous Huxley, who was famous for the horror of technology and modern society work. His works include Brave New World, PYQ, Point Counterpoint, again PYQ, Eyeglasses, Gaja, Chrome Yellow, After Many a Summer. Okay, so he presents the horror of technology. He presents that one day technology will surpass the human, the manual hard work, okay, and how it is dangerous for the living beings. Then we have George Orwell, who exposed political corruption, totalitarianism, and colonial hypocrisy. He writes 1984, Animal Farm, or Homage to California, Burmese Days, The Road to Vegan Beer, all are very important work. And in 1984, he presents the totalitarianism theme. It is a dystopian novel. We have two types of theory, utopia, Ramrajya, and dystopia. Utopia means Ramrajya, that is a good world. But dystopia is opposite of utopia. It means a bad world in which science, in which technology proceeds. Okay, so he presents the technology world in 1984. Okay, in which human has no freedom, in which human is serving to the machines. Okay, and here is a famous quote that Big Brother is watching you, like Big Boss. Okay, so I must say that you should read this work, and it is also important for our exam point of view. Then we have another novelist, Joseph Conrad, who is famous for Heart of Darkness, in which he presents colonial theme with Lord Jim, Nostromo, PYQ, Under Western Eyes, PYQ, The Secret Agent. So these are works written by Joseph Conrad. Then we have Arnold Bennett, who wrote The Old Wives and Anna of the Five Towns. We have Catherine Mansfield, who is famous for The Doll's House, Miss Brill, The Garden Party. Okay, she wrote brilliant short stories. Then we have Joel Galsworthy, who is famous for The Forsyte Saga, a modern comedy, The Man of Property, our PYQ, In Chancery, and To Let. So, okay, let us move to Dramatists. So the modern age dramatists were influenced by European drama, You can say particularly the work of Ibsen, A Doll House, and Chekhov, Strindberg. And these playwrights emphasized realism, psychological depth, and the social theme. They wrote on social structure and the influence of symbolism, expressionism, and theater of absurd can be seen. So they write with non-linear structure, non-linear narrative can be seen. They have fragmented dialogue, they have symbolic setting, which moving from the rigid verse like Victorian theatrical convention. So you can say that can find realism and psychological depth in their work. They have complex character with inner conflict. We have social critique which express on war, class oppression, industrialization, gender roles. Are experimental, they use non-linear plots, symbolic staging and experimental dialogue. We can find absurdity and existential themes such as meaningless lives, emphasizing human isolation, and majorly they were influenced by European drama. So these are some features about modern drama. The major dramatist we have G.B. Shaw, who was the member of Fabian Society, and it was formed in 1884. What is the main work of Fabian Society groups? They wrote against politics, they wrote for society, they wrote about social structure, they wrote for political awakening. And so Shaw is most prominent modern dramatist. He was known for social critique and wit. He used drama as a medium to reform the society and moral questioning. And his plays combined philosophical ideas with engaging dialogues. He wrote Pygmalion, which explores ideas on class, gender, and we have a famous line that the difference between a lady and a flower girl is not how she behaves but how she is treated. Okay, PVQ है हमारा. And he wrote Major Barbara, which questions on morality, Man and Superman, and Arms and Men. It is a satirical comedy on war and heroism. And he wrote Widower's House, Mrs. Warren Profession, which were initially banned because it has prostitution theme, but later it was open for public. He also wrote St. John, which is historical drama which emphasizing individuality and courage. J.M. Synge, who was an Irish dramatist who brought poetic realism and Irish folklore. He was famous for The Playboy of the Western World, which is a comic play actually and depict rural Ireland. And he wrote Riders to the Sea, The Well of the Saints, which explored the theme like blindness. Then we have T.S. Eliot, who is famous for Murder in Cathedral, which depicts Thomas Beckett martyrdom, okay, and the family reunion. So you have to read about Murder in Cathedral, very important. It is actually a verse drama. It has symbolic structure. It is on psychological dilemma. Then we have Christopher Fry, who is known for The Lady, Not for Burning, and A Phoenix Too Frequent, which deals with love, morality, human desire. We have Samuel Beckett, who is pioneer of theatre of absurd, Waiting for Godot, and he wrote Crabbe's Last Tape. So he used minimalistic dialogue, absurd situation, and bleak outlook on life. As you know about Waiting for Godot, we have Pozo, Lucky, and They Are Waiting for God Who Never Come. Let us have a look on Bloomsbury Group. So it was spread during 1905 to 1930 in London. We have Virginia Woolf, Leonard Woolf, E.M. Forster, Lytton Strachey, Clive Bell, John Maynard Keynes. These were the members of Bloomsbury Group. And they wrote intellectual poetry. They were elite circle. They emphasized on art, personal freedom, sexual liberation. They rejected Victorian conventions. They explored psychology, feminism, and literary experimentation. And their work influenced majorly the psychological features. They wrote with the help of stream of conscience technique, like we have Mrs. Dalloway, To the Lighthouse, written by Woolf. We have Eminent Victorians, written by Strachey, M. Foster's A Passage to India. Okay, so these are the features of Bloomsbury Group, and it is very important. Okay, and also it is our PYQ. So we studied that we have Imagism, Symbolism movement, stream of consciousness, interior monologue, framed by Henry James. We have many literary movement, and so far as literary movement is concerned, after the age I will make a video on literary movement and important literary movement which are repeatedly asked. Okay, so we can say that the modern age is an age of rebellion, rebellion against old norms, Victorian certainties, and rigid social conventions. So it is an age where literature mirrors the fractured, anxious, and complex modern world. So from the sharp images of Ezra Pound and Hilda Doolittle to the inner psychology of Virginia Woolf and James Joyce. So this is all about our modern age. So I have a question, that which modern age poet or novelist do you feel best capture the anxiety of the 20th century? Okay, comment below. This is all about our today's lecture, and if you find this insightful, then hit the bell icon and subscribe our channel for more updates. And we have playlists on literary criticism, culture studies, English in India, linguistics. So check out these playlists. Okay, bye bye.